Candy Evans, and this is Dallas Dirt. And today, my guest is very special. They're all special, but he's a little more special because I wanted to talk dirt with this gentleman for a long time. Please help me welcome Jim Fite, who's President and Chief Executive Officer for Century 21, Judge Fite Realty. Thank you so much for joining us, Jim.
Good to be here, Candy. Thank you.
Perfect timing. I'm sorry that there's so much going on with all these lawsuits in real estate, but really, was real estate ever quiet, right?
That's right. It's changing every day.
It has been.
Opportunities.
And you have been watching it for such a long time. You've been in real estate for 52 years, and your father started the company, Judge Fite Realty, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And I am obsessed with the history of real estate. So would you tell us your story and his story, too?
You don't have enough time.
Oh, well, we'll do it again then.
Okay. So my father founded our company in 1937.
37.
I'm fifth generation, Dallas County. My sister and I bought the company in 1977. We were an independent firm for 60 years.
Wow.
And then in 1997, we do a lot of things with sevens.
Yeah.
In 1997, we joined the Century 21 system. We had 4 offices and 100 people at the time. Today, we are from Waco to Oklahoma City, all points in between. We have about 1,200 real estate professionals and another couple of hundred employees. We're in mortgage, title, insurance, property management, own our own real estate school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have a vendor network, heavy in relocation, corporate relocation, have been forever.
That's
Mobile.
kept you busy here.
Yeah, keeps us busy. And so it's a good laugh. We're blessed. And
you've seen Dallas and Fort Worth change so much.
think?
Just North
Yeah, a
Texas.
little bit.
Holy cow.
yeah, like Loop 12 was the loop and all that.
That was the 635.
Yeah,
right?
and then
the edge of town,
635.
right? Yeah.
And then on
Yeah.
to
And
George
then-
Bush and
now up to Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Right. Well, now when you think about your father, Judge Fite, was he a judge, first of all?
He was a judge.
Yes.
That was his name, but he was a judge of horses, whiskey, and women.
Women.
Not necessarily in that order.
I think that's even better than what the traditional judge does. So he wasn't an attorney, he wasn't a judge, he was a judge of horses, whiskey, and women.
That's correct. Good Texas man.
Good Texas man.
Yeah.
Where did
and by the way, he didn't carry a briefcase. He had saddlebags on his shoulder.
he carried saddlebags?
Yeah. His arms were free to hug women, that way.
We need to get a picture of that.
Okay. My daughter actually has his saddlebags in her living room. Yeah.
That is that's fascinating. I think it's great. Did he pack heat? Did he carry a gun?
Oh, of course, in
of
his
course he
pocket.
did.
Yeah.
He did.
Of course, back then they had 30-30s in the back truck.
But this was
it was a different era. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Texas was basically like a giant
Wild, Wild
ranch
West,
town.
yeah.
The Wild West was
Yeah.
here. Where did what was his first home that he sold, or what part of town was it?
The first transaction, my family homesteaded land in Duncanville, and this was back in the 1800s. And he actually negotiated a lease for one of our cousins to another person on the land. And that was his first transaction. And he got paid to do it. See, you can have a family deal, but if you don't get paid, you're not a realtor, right? Well, back then you didn't even have a license.
So he started at a time when you just kind of sold real estate. You didn't have to go get a license.
When I got my license in 1972, all I had to do was pass the exam, and then I had to take 30 hours within 1 year.
I see.
And then following that, I got my broker's license the second year. I was 18.
You were 18.
And you had to be 21 to get that. So I had to have my disabilities of a minor removed. I was the youngest agent in the country at the time.
At the time?
Because you had to be 21.
Oh my gosh, that is fascinating.
Yeah, so anyway, that was 52 years ago.
I mean,
more than you wanted to know.
I love it. Now, we have been hit with this tumultuous lawsuit that, has been in the news. We have a lot of agents are nervous. I mean, at first I had agents saying to me, oh, this is going to affect me. I'm in Texas. It's only people who are selling homes in Missouri. And I said, I don't think so. I think it's going to have an effect on everyone in the business. I want to talk about that. But you said this happened before in the 1980s. So
Correct.
this battle for the commission is not new.
No.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, in the early 1980s, I was president of the Greater Dallas Association of Realtors. There was an antitrust lawsuit filed, multiple suits around the country, but there was one filed here in the DFW area.
Okay.
And as I recall, there were 6 Association of Realtors, back then we called them Board of Realtors, and 4 named defendants. There were 4 large companies filed. And then from there, of course, the defendants got together and they had to manage the suit. And I myself and 2 other brokers were assigned by these defendants to actually manage the suit.
You be our representatives, in other words, right?
And so we hired a law firm, and ultimately we settled that suit.
So what do you think about this lawsuit, why it was brought up? I mean, is this just constant pounding on the real estate industry? I mean, do you see that, or do you see that there's some reasons why it happened?
Well, you know, I'm not going to try to get in the head of a plaintiff or a defendant. From my perspective, knowing what I know about antitrust and the way I've trained our people over the years, real estate commissions have been negotiable for a long time, since the early 80s.
Right.
And so my concern is that they don't really get that it's a very fragmented industry. There's not one company that controls the real estate business. It's a very local business.
Right.
And they're individuals it's made up of primarily independent contractors. And those independent contractors are generally independent thinkers, and they're independent business people. And they do the things they do because, one, they're trained, but number 2, they serve the community. And so being so fragmented, they saw an opportunity, they being whoever they are, those plaintiffs and their attorneys saw the opportunity to, file this class action suit.
Right.
It got into the class, and guess what? Unfortunately for the community, and I'm talking about the community, the people, the buyers and the sellers, it was lost, from the defendant perspective. And as a result, my guess is, in today's legal world, very expensive to try one of these kind of cases and to carry it on for the appellate court and carry it on from, all the way to the Supreme Court if it got that far.
Right.
So you're talking about a very, very, very expensive process to go through this.
Yes.
And so they settled, most of the defendants settled.
Interesting. Do you recall that as the administrations were changing, so that was, probably 2000, there was a settlement with the NAR and the Department of Justice, and then they backtracked it. What
Well,
happened?
if you're talking Department of Justice, a whole different animal.
Right.
And
But I'm
there
wondering
was-
if this
there was
led to this whole atmosphere of antitrust, because they had come to a settlement and then they said we're backtracking, we're going
Yeah, you
back.
said 2000. You're
But
talking
it
about
was
2020. 2020. I think.
2020, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
about 3 or 4 years
2020,
ago.
right,
Yeah,
4 years.
And I'm not really an expert on. I know that they had settled on whatever they settled on,
Right.
and it was having to do with MLS disclosures and things
Right.
like that. And then they backtracked, whether that was political, whether that was something else. I don't know. I'm going to stay out of that one. I don't know the background, except that it happened.
It happened.
And I don't understand that about our government, but don't get me started on that. Okay.
Yeah. It was kind of like I made you a promise and now we're not going to keep it. So
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
Secondhand, third hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so clear cooperation was one of the ways in which the NAR decided that they would satisfy some of these complaints that were going on. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Well, when I think of clear cooperation and I think of where we are in our industry and how we have attempted to train our people over the last many, many years, our buyers and our sellers should know how we are paid. They should. And so one good thing that I hope will come out of this realm or this series of settlements is that buyers will know. If those buyers out there didn't know, which by the way, I think most of them have known, that the seller was paying that out of the equity of their home.
Right.
If they didn't know that, they should know that. And if that comes out of this, more power to us. It's going to be a good thing for our industry and for our consumers. We have 5 core values in our company. And the second core value is we are dedicated to our clients, our profession, and our community. And we take that very seriously. First, to our clients, the people we represent. Representation doesn't always have to do with money. It has to do with representation.
Right.
I promise I will do certain things, and I owe you a fiduciary relationship.
Right.
And that fiduciary is to take care of you to the best of my professional ability.
Without money even entering the
Money
picture.
doesn't even enter the picture. It's a fiduciary relationship.
Right.
And so by giving that fiduciary relationship between an agent and their client, that's pretty powerful stuff.
And that's always been there.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
When I took my exam back in 1972, fiduciary was in the exam.
And it's there today.
It's still there today.
Exactly.
And that hadn't changed.
Right.
We need to be better at communicating, apparently. I'll just say that.
Okay, better at communicating. So do you think that's one thing that will come out of this lawsuit? What about anything bad?
Well, buyer representation. We've been doing buyer representation in Texas for many, many years.
Yes.
We, have a system, a transaction management system in our company, like most larger firms have.
Right.
And our managers review the contracts and review the documents to make sure they're in proper order. Well, many times in the past, we've gotten those buyer representation agreements too late in the transaction. We've always had them for years, many years. Well, guess what? Now it's being dictated if the settlement goes through as NAR described it and as I understand it. Notice I'm saying 2 things there. I've read it. I think I understand it, but it's still my interpretation. Those buyer rep agreements will have to be early on in the transaction, like it says, if I read the information correctly, before our agent would show a house. Now, what happened was those unintentional consequences. And there's a lot of dialogue out there, a lot of conversation. Open houses. So I'm going to hold an open house on Saturday.
I have to make everyone sign an agreement.
Do I have to do that? That remains to be seen.
That's interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And now I'm showing that open house, and now there's one 3 doors down. Let's go look at that one.
Do I sign another paper there?
Well, you wouldn't have to sign another one, depending on what your first one said. But these are questions that are now arising, the unintentional consequences of we cannot show a property without a buyer rep agreement. But here's the unintentional consequence. You're a consumer. You find a house, you see a sign, you find it on, some website. I want to go look at the house. Buyers don't understand our business.
No.
They just want to look at the house.
And usually it's a quick thing because, the market
They're out
is
there on
tight.
Sunday afternoon.
Right. I have a limited amount of time. I want to see this house. I want to see it now.
Honey, let's go look at houses today. Well, it'll be interesting to see how our real estate professionals will be trained by the various companies out here in the world. There are over 2,400 real estate companies in DFW.
Wow. And DFW.
Over 40,000 realtors in the MLS.
And the MLS.
That's my last count. That's what I heard. I assume that's fairly correct. A lot of people to train.
Oh, to train. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people won't get the training they ought to get. And where does that lead in the future?
It seems
It'll be
like
interesting.
It's a lot of bureaucracy that's going to put upon the agent then more.
Well, I don't, when I think of bureaucracy, I wouldn't think this is bureaucracy. This is called procedures. Of how to do business in the future.
Okay.
Bureaucracy is
when you get it at the state level.
When you got to
slow
do
it
stupid
down.
stuff.
Go through many motions. Well,
the motions that don't make any
Yes.
sense
Yes.
that you just have to do. Well, this is for a good reason, I guess, because the buyer wants to know or should know, and the seller should know how their money is being invested in their services they're receiving.
So after this goes into effect, then the buyer can still be paid by the selling agent and still get the 3%. You
That's-
just have
well,
to have the paper.
First of all, I'm not going to say what you just
3%
said.
because it doesn't have to be 3%.
It's negotiable.
It's negotiable. It can be whatever.
Whatever.
Right. Okay.
So can the seller still pay a buyer's agent? The answer to that, based upon the settlement that I've read, is yes.
Is yes.
Yes.
As far as we know.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my understanding.
Right.
That has not been prohibited.
Okay.
What has been prohibited, if the suit or the settlement goes forward,
Right.
and I keep saying that because there are people out there saying this is the way it is. It's not the way it is until the judge says this is the way it
Right.
is.
So I'm saying that how will you still be able to have the buyer's representation commission paid out of the sale of the home from the selling agent?
Yes.
Yes.
That's my understanding from the settlement, yes.
Okay. But that'll just have to be documented.
Well, sure.
Okay.
As it should be.
Wasn't it always documented?
Well, it was documented through a listing agreement.
Okay.
In other words, a seller
Right.
said, I will pay the
Yeah.
X dollars, and X dollars would be split between listing agent and selling agent.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, that's been there for a long time.
And
now, whether that's been there in every state, I can't answer that.
Right. That's actually something I discussed with an attorney previously, is that it hasn't been going on in every state. Texas has promulgated forms that were created and that most of the brokers use, the Texas forms, and that's all stated in there very clearly.
Well, let me say it was stated based upon the law up until this point.
This point, right, exactly.
And we communicated with the Texas Realtors last week in a brainstorming group in our company. We spent a half a day brainstorming, okay, what are we going to do? How do we communicate?
Right.
We'd already had, the day after the settlement, we immediately sent out a company-wide email. Here's what we know. We then, the following week, had a video of our general sales manager communicating, this is what we know. And then last week, we had a company update. I do a company update the last Thursday of every month. And the whole thing was dedicated, except for some recognition to our top people, on this subject. So here are the known, here are the unknown, here's where we are today. Now let's go out there and serve our clients.
And serve the clients, right, and do that. So you're totally communicating with your agents.
We are doing the best
Yeah.
we know how to do, and we're really good at it.
Good. That's good
We're
to know.
really good at it. We're really, really, really good at it.
Who might be hurt by this, if anyone? Was it good?
Well, without a doubt, a first-time home buyer that doesn't have any money to pay an agent could be hurt. Veterans Administration will not allow certain things, and I'm not going to get into that. I'm not a lender. You can interview a lender. That'd be a good one to do. And I know the Mortgage Bankers Association with the National Association of Realtors have written letters to the Veterans Administration to relieve some of this pressure that have been created. But you've got a VA veterans, first-time home buyers, definitely. And I would say even those people up until the average or above average sale price are going, your lower price ranges could be negatively affected by this. And that's one of those unintentional consequences. Because if a buyer if the seller's not going to pay an agent and the buyer doesn't have any money because they're scraping together a down payment and closing costs,
Exactly.
how is the agent going to be paid? And, if agents aren't paid, they probably aren't going to work.
Right.
So, it's kind of like if I go to the car dealer and I want my car fixed, they're going to have to pay some money to fix it.
Exactly. And if you hire someone off the street to fix it, we all know what happens.
Very good analogy. I
Yes.
like that. Can I
Yes.
use that?
You absolutely
That's a good
can.
one.
So, because I've seen headlines that really irritate me in the national media saying that this is going to save consumers thousands of dollars.
Well, we'll wait and see. Don't know.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see how that works
I
out.
tend to disagree with that. I think it might.
I just had lunch with our top agent of our company last year, just a few minutes ago, and she's been asked by a lot of her clients, and obviously she's got a lot of clients, and she was asked, what does this mean, and so forth and so on, and she said she's got a big smile on her face, and she said, everyone I've talked to said, you are absolutely worth whatever you get paid.
Wow.
And the top professionals will always be top professionals. They will always be paid what they're worth. Now, there could be some weeding out. You didn't ask this, but there could be some
that was
weeding
my
out of our
next
industry.
question. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a little ahead of you.
Yeah, we're going to weed out maybe some people who don't work as hard.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. There's a lot of people attracted to real estate. I kind of pride myself on knowing and loving and really supporting agents because I think they're a unique personality. But there's a lot of people who are attracted to this business because they think it's glamorous, because the media
Well, they
has
think
made
it's
it-
easy, too.
They think it's easy and glamorous, and it's just about flipping homes and then having a glass of champagne and sitting on the couch and
Yeah,
chatting.
HGTV.
HGTV, exactly, right?
You know, I'm going to get my license.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to find a buyer.
And I'm going to sell
find
a
seller.
home in Malibu.
Then I'm going to
Yeah.
find that house and I'm going to remodel it, and then I'm going to resell it, and I'm going to do it all in 30 minutes.
And I'm going to make millions.
Millions. It's going to be just, you know.
Yes.
No, it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. It's one of the hardest eat what you kill professions that there is. And I tell people that all the time. You prepare for a whole year without a salary when you go into real estate.
I would rather not tell my agents that. I don't. It doesn't have to be that way.
Okay.
That's what I know
Okay.
after training a lot of agents in my lifetime. Doesn't have to be that way.
Okay.
So I don't agree with that statement.
Okay.
I'll just tell you that. I don't agree with that statement.
Okay.
You know, you can go out there and you can make money in the first 90 days if you work.
Really?
Absolutely. Within 6 months for sure if you work.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have to talk some more about this. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for watching this episode of Dallas Dirt. Stay tuned. There's more to talk about.